Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk. Can
Is it distributed? Is the amendment being distributed? You may proceed.
Thank you. Kendrick Meek and I have worked for months to bring attention to the impending 3% withholding problem. Unless it's first repealed by 2011, anyone who provides a good or service to a government at any level will see 3% of their payments withheld and forwarded to the IRS as a form of prepayment on any taxes that might come due. There are some exceptions for charities and smaller governments, but for everyone else, this ill-conceived provision will likely reduce much-needed business cash flows, increase costs and administrative burdens for the federal, local, and state government, and increase the cost of compliance for the majority of taxpayers who already pay their fair share on time. I was a sponsor of repeal legislation in the 109th Congress and am now the original co-sponsor of a bill, H.R. 1023, that would repeal this harmful provision outright. Mr. Chairman, although I was initially pleased at committee action, unless it's amended, I cannot support today's bill. The committee's proposal would delay implementation of 3% withholding for 1 year. Although this would give us one additional year to figure out how to repeal the 3% withholding provision altogether, the downside is we'd risk making this the next perennial tax extender. If the committee wants to reverse the 3% withholding policy, I believe that's what we should do, as laid out in the Meek-Herger bill. Second, I'm disappointed by the way this issue is coming before the committee. As a writer to the repeal of the IRS private debt collectors pilot program, pairing the 3% measure to such a poison pill undermines the bipartisan work that has been struck on the Meek-Herger bill to date. In fact, H.R. 1023 has over 175 co-sponsors from both parties, made possible by the grassroots work of a truly bipartisan coalition of business and government associations. The 3% withholding deserves consideration alone and on its own merit. For these reasons, Mr. Chairman, my amendment would strike the private debt collectors language in the legislation and replace it with a full repeal of 3% withholding. In addition, the amendment would institute increased information reporting for certain government payments for property and services similar to an administration proposal. Taxpayer compliance is important, and we should consider information reporting as an alternative to get at the real, if limited, problem of noncompliance in this sector. Mr. Chairman, I urge the committee members vote for my amendment and support a full 3% withholding repeal.
Is there anyone seeking recognition, Mr. Meeks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to respond to Mr. Herger, who's we have worked very closely and on this issue, and a number of the advocates on behalf of small business and local government, and those that feel that fair play for those that play the game in the way that they should in paying their taxes, that this 3% provision is a withhold is unfair. And Mr. Chairman, I want to first commend you and the staff for spending a lot of time in how we should resolve this issue. As you know, just a little history lesson on just for the members of the committee, that this provision came about in the last Congress, and it came out of conference. It didn't have a hearing. No one knew about it. The U.S. Chamber did not know about it. The League of Cities, Association of Counties, small business associations, the engineers, or what have you, defense contractors. No one knew about it, and it ended up becoming a provision in the conference report. So members voted for it, and now we're stuck with a 3% withhold. In this piece of legislation, in Section 3, which Mr. Herger's amendment would strike, it delays it for a year, but it also it tells the IRS 6 months after the enactment of the legislation that they're supposed to come back to the Congress, both House Ways and Means and also the Senate Finance Committee, with a report on this whole issue of the 3%. Now, I'm in spirit, I'm with Mr. Herger in repealing the entire 3%, but I know the reality of the fiscal impact is not something that this committee can deal with at this particular time. So we're stuck with something that we did not create, especially under the leadership that we have now. I also would like to share with the committee that spoke with Mr. Lewis, who's the chairman of the Oversight Subcommittee, who has agreed to continue to carry the ball on the 3% and to have hearings. And also the chairman has been, as always, an open-door policy and an open ear to this issue and has kept it alive. I would respectfully have to disagree with Mr. Herger of the fact that we should deal with this issue today. I think this is a leg up and not a leg down on having 3% even mentioned in this legislation. I support the overall legislation. I also definitely support the language that's in the legislation now, delaying it by 1 year and asking for a 6-month review. I strongly support the spirit of Mr. Herger's amendment, but meeting with many of the associations that are interested in this repeal, they, in the majority, feel that any time we can bring this issue to the forefront, it's important, and any time and at the time that we can resolve it is even better. But on this particular piece of legislation and today, we won't be able to do that. By doing that, I think that it would take us out of the realm of being a part of this legislation today if Mr. Herger's amendment was to pass today. So, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend to the members that we vote down the Herger amendment and we move forth with the language that are in the underlying bill. And I want to thank you for including it, sir.
But I mean,
I yield back.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on the Herger amendment? The chair will be recommending a no vote, and all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. No. The noes have it. Mr. Herger. Roll call vote is requested. Sufficient number of hands. The vote will be taken.